You may be surrounded by people. You may be smiling. You may even be producing, delivering, living. But inside, something inside you is falling apart, and no one notices. This is the cruelest trap of silent anxiety. She doesn't announce herself with sirens. She doesn't ask permission. She infiltrates. It's like carrying a piano on your back while trying to look light, like smiling in an emotional storm just so no one asks, "What happened?" Because deep down, you wouldn't even know how to explain it. You just feel it. A tightness, a pressure in your chest, an invisible lump in your throat, and a fear that has no name but that visits you every day. You get out of bed feeling like you're already late for your own life. The day hasn't even started, and you're already exhausted. The silence of anxiety is treacherous, because it doesn't sound like a scream. It sounds like a sigh, a slow surrender, a whatever disguised as maturity. No one sees when you freeze looking at your phone, when you isolate yourself and pretend you're just tired, when the invitation to go out becomes another mental battle. What if I get sick? What if I freeze? What if they think I'm weird? You close yourself off. You withdraw. You emotionally mutilate yourself to fit into other people's expectations. And then comes the cruelest part, the judgment. Someone says, "You have everything, why are you like this?" Or, "You're overreacting, just don't think about it." And you keep quiet, because it seems that besides hurting, you still have to prove that it hurts. But Jordan Peterson reminds us, suffering is suffering. The fact that it is invisible to others does not make it any less real. Anxiety is often the soul saying, "I'm at my limit," and you're not listening. It's like being in a car that's out of control, with your foot on the brake, but to no avail. It's living on constant alert, as if something terrible is about to happen, even when everything seems fine. And this corrodes, because the world demands productivity, posture, stability. But no one taught you what to do when your mind collapses and your body decides to scream. You start to doubt yourself. You start to feel ashamed of yourself for being like this, hating yourself for not being able to just get over it. And it is at this exact point that many get lost, because they confuse anxiety with weakness. They confuse sensitivity with incapacity. But what if, in fact, your pain was a legitimate call for care? What if your anxiety wasn't a flaw, but an alarm that went off because you spent too much time ignoring your own emotions? You may have been too strong for a long time, assuming everything, silencing everything, swallowing everything. But the body remembers. The body demands it. And when he yells, he's not sabotaging you. He's trying to save you. This is the time to stop pretending, to take off the mask of the functional person and admit, "I need help. I need shelter." Because silent anxiety doesn't need any more criticism. She needs space. She needs to be listened to. She needs to reconnect. Peterson also says, the hero's journey begins when he faces the dragon within himself, not when he pretends it doesn't exist. Maybe your dragon today is constant fear, the guilt of not being able to cope, or the weight of looking strong all the time. But true courage is not in hiding it. It's about looking inside and saying, "Enough. I'm not going to punish myself for feeling anymore." Anxiety doesn't start with the world screaming. It starts with an inner voice, subtle, persistent, merciless. "You're late. That's not good enough. You should be further along in life. You disappoint. You are weak." That voice lives inside you, and she looks a lot like you. But in truth, it's a distorted reflection of everything they demanded of you, without giving you the emotional support to sustain it. Jordan Peterson warns us that there is an instance within us that functions as a severe judge, but almost never as one fair defender. You judge yourself. You correct yourself. You pressure yourself. But when was the last time you stood up for yourself? Anxiety is often fueled by this internal court, a court where you are always in the dock, and he is never entitled to absolution. You may be lying there trying to sleep, but your mind is on an interrogation. Why didn't you do more? How could you miss that? Everyone is moving forward, and you are stagnant. It's like there's a gear turning inside you all the time. And if you try to rest, she punishes you with guilt. You don't just feel physical fatigue. You feel ashamed of being tired. This is the logic of destructive self-demand. She turns rest into laziness, turns vulnerability into weakness. It turns humanity into a failure. But stop and think honestly. If someone spoke to you the way you speak to yourself, would you be able to stand it? Maybe you grew up hearing that only the strong survive, that crying is for weak people, that you need to be better than others. And now, even as an adult, that voice continues to push you until you collapse. You don't take breaks because you think you need to earn rest. You don't allow yourself to make mistakes because you've learned that love is conditional on performance. You live in tension because you believe that if you relax, everything will fall apart. But here's the brutal truth. This self-demanding machine is stealing your peace, and you are feeding her with guilt, fear, and inhuman demands. Peterson would say, you need to treat yourself like someone you're responsible for caring for. That's not weakness, it's emotional maturity. Taking care of yourself isn't a luxury, it's urgent. You don't have to wait for a collapse to realize that this pace is unsustainable. You don't have to hit rock bottom to allow yourself to breathe. The machine that keeps charging you needs to be reprogrammed, and it starts with a simple, yet powerful question. What if I wasn't my enemy? What if you could speak to yourself with the same compassion you speak to someone you love? What if you recognize that being tired is not a sign of failure, but of continued effort? You are trying. You're putting up with a lot more than anyone sees, and that in itself demands deep respect. Anxiety is not synonymous with weakness. Often it is the result of someone who did not allow themselves to stop, for fear of being left behind. But maybe now, it's time to stop, not to give up, but to breathe, to listen to your soul, and to rebuild a new way of existing, without so much punishment. You feel a tightness in your chest. It feels like you're short of breath. Your heart races. Your hands sweat. But you're not running. You're not in real danger. You are perhaps on the bus, at work, at home, standing still, and yet the body screams. It's as if he's trying to warn you of something your mind refuses to name. Anxiety often doesn't speak with words. She speaks with her body. It manifests itself in ways that confuse even doctors. Stomach pain, dizziness, numbness, unexplained nausea. And the cruelest part? You start to doubt yourself. Am I making this up? Is it just a fad? Why doesn't anyone understand that I'm really sorry? Because you feel. And he's sorry. Jordan Peterson says, ignoring pain doesn't make it less real. It makes it more unbearable. When you don't verbalize your anguish, your body takes over. And he screams. Loud, intense, without asking permission. You wake up in the middle of the night with a rapid heartbeat. You start to sweat in a supermarket queue. Feels like you're going to faint for no apparent reason. And what does the world do? It tells you to control yourself, think positive, take a deep breath. But how do you breathe when it feels like you're drowning inside? Here's something few people say clearly. You are not broken. Your body is not betraying you. He's trying to protect you. Anxiety is an alarm system. It's your body saying, something's wrong here, something's overloaded. You don't need to blame yourself for this. You need to learn to listen to this. It's like a baby crying in its crib, not because it wants to be manipulated, but because it needs to be cared for. Your body does the same. It craves attention. Many of your physical symptoms are not illnesses. They are messages. Messages from a soul that is tired of being ignored, of emotions swallowed for years, of situations that you tolerate in silence, but that gradually make you sick. Peterson reminds us, you cannot heal what you refuse to face, and maybe now is the time to face it, not as an act of confrontation, but as a gesture of welcome. Close your eyes for a moment, place your hand on your chest, and ask your body, what are you trying to tell me? You might hear, I'm exhausted, or I'm scared, or even, stop pretending everything is okay. And then the healing begins, not in denial, but in listening. No more fighting your own body. No more hating yourself for feeling. You're not crazy. You are someone who is trying to survive without the right tools. And today, you started finding these tools. If this resonates with you in any way, please subscribe and like. This will help this video reach someone who might be desperate right now, and you'll have been a part of that. Pain needs a witness, and maybe all that was missing was for someone to say, I understand you. I felt that way too, and there is a way out. Your body is not your enemy. He is the messenger, and you are now learning to listen. How many times have you held back tears because you thought it was a sign of weakness? How many times have you disguised your fear, forced a smile, pretended to be okay, because you learned that feeling too much makes you vulnerable? There is a dangerous myth circulating in our culture that being sensitive is being fragile, as if feeling anxious was a certificate of incapacity, as if expressing pain was something to be ashamed of. But here's the truth. Sensitivity doesn't make you weak. She reveals you. It shows that you are alive, that you perceive the world deeply, that you are not indifferent to pain, chaos, and pressure. Jordan Peterson says, "True strength is not the absence of suffering, but the ability to face it consciously." The problem is that we were taught to hide the soul, disguising wounds with productivity, masking fear with arrogance, stifling despair with irony or silence. So you grow up believing that being strong means never trembling, never cry, never admit, "I am not well." And behind this mask of control, an unbearable weight accumulates. You act like you can handle it all, until you can't anymore. Anxiety catches you off guard, and then you blame yourself. How did I let this happen to me? But what if you understood that feeling too much is not a flaw, but a legitimate response to an increasingly chaotic world? You are reacting to overstimulation, to lack of meaning, to pressures to be everything to everyone. Anxiety is not a sign that you are fragile. It's a sign that you are human in a dehumanizing system. You don't need to apologize for feeling. There's no need to hide because your mind is tired. You are not failing by having limits. You are beginning to awaken. The myth of fragility feeds on comparison. You look around and see people who seem to have it all figured out, but what you don't see is behind the scenes. You don't see the silent cries in the bathroom, the muffled outbursts inside the car, insomnia disguised as productivity. You only see the facade and compare it to the pain you feel inside. Peterson reminds us of something essential. The comparison should be made with who you were yesterday, not with who someone else is today. You are fighting battles that no one knows about. And yet, he keeps trying. This is not weakness. This is bravery. Sensitivity only becomes suffering when it is not understood, when it is treated as a defect, when it is silenced with shame. But when you start to see it as a quality, like an internal antenna that picks up what others ignore, it becomes a strength. Strength to perceive, strength to transform, strength to care for yourself and others with more empathy. So the next time you call yourself weak for feeling too much, stop, breathe, and tell yourself, it's not weakness, it's presence. You are present in your body, in your emotions, in your humanity. And that, in a world that demands masks, is an act of courage. Fragility is not what you feel. Fragility is living your entire life pretending you don't feel anything. You didn't come into this world to be a machine. You came to live with truth. And the truth sometimes hurts, but it also sets you free. You don't need anyone else telling you what to do. You don't need another voice telling you that you're weak, dramatic, or over the top. You already think enough of yourself. What you need, and perhaps have never received, is acceptance. Not a hug that lasts 3 seconds and ends with empty advice. Not an "it will pass" that ignores what you feel, but real welcome, presence, listening, humanity. Anxiety is not cured by scolding. It doesn't go away because someone says you need to stop doing this. It diminishes when you are seen without having to explain yourself. When someone says, "I don't understand exactly what you feel, but I'm here." Or when you learn to say it to yourself. Jordan Peterson leads us to understand that people don't need to be spared suffering. They need to be strengthened to face it. And empowering someone starts with listening, not judging. Imagine a scared child in the dark. She doesn't need someone yelling, "Stop messing around, this is just a room." She needs someone to say, "I know you're scared. I'm going to sit here with you." The anxiety you feel today may be an echo of that child from yesterday. The one who learned that expressing pain was uncomfortable, that showing weakness was wrong, that crying was shameful. And now every time fear comes, the body reacts as if it were still alone in that dark room. But you are not alone anymore. And your healing begins when you stop being the inner critic and become the caregiver. This does not mean playing the victim. It means stop punishing yourself. You may be demanding strength from yourself that not even mature adults possess. You may be trying to cope with life with the same escape strategies you learned when you were just a scared child. But what if right now you learned something new? What if instead of demanding strength from yourself, you offered yourself compassion? Peterson states, treat yourself like someone you have a responsibility to help. And that starts with embracing your limits without shame. Acknowledge your feelings without guilt. Stop forcing yourself to cope when you're clearly at your limit. This is what welcoming is all about. It is to say, I see your pain, and it has a right to exist. It's not about giving into it, it's looking into her eyes and saying, you don't have to shout anymore. I'm listening. You might be waiting for someone to come rescue you, but what if you were that person? What if the acceptance you seek outside started inside? Close your eyes now and tell yourself, without irony, without haste, I'm here with you, no matter what happens. This is the seed of healing, the root of true strength, because the opposite of judgment is not indifference. Be careful, and when you truly take care of yourself, the world stops seeming so threatening. Because you become your own refuge, you swallow hard, says everything is fine, when, in fact, it is not. Smile on your face, but inside you a volcano erupting. This is silent anger, not the kind that explodes in screams, but the kind that accumulates in silence, turning into anxiety, insomnia, muscle tension, pain that doesn't go away. How many times have you stopped yourself from saying what you felt because you were afraid of the reaction? How many times have you kept quiet to avoid conflict, to avoid disappointing, to avoid being judged? And every time you swallow, that energy doesn't disappear. It builds up. It becomes a burden. It turns into symptoms. Jordan Peterson recalls, ignoring the truth doesn't make it go away. It just transforms into something more dangerous. Your swallowed truth turns into anxiety. His muted anger turns to panic. And you start to believe that the problem is just your body, when in reality it's your soul begging for expression. Think of all the conversations you rehearse in your mind but never say out loud. All the, I didn't like it, that hurts me. Stop treating me like that got stuck in my throat. This accumulation is toxic, and there comes a day when the body can no longer carry on its own what the mouth refuses to release. Many anxious people live with this invisible anger. They don't look angry, they just look tense, insecure, hyper alert. But behind this there is frustration. Frustration at not being heard. Frustration at always having to be understanding, but rarely understood. Anxiety is often this internal protest. I exist. I feel. I need to be recognized. But what happens? Instead of recognition comes more judgment. You hear, you complain too much. Or, you're always tense. You never relax. And then, instead of releasing the anger, you repress it even more. Peterson says, something essential. When you don't take a stand, you don't avoid chaos. You just invite it to grow within you. And that's what happens to those who aren't heard. Anger doesn't go away. It becomes internalized. And internalized, it becomes chronic anxiety. You don't have to explode to express yourself. You don't have to hurt to be strong. But you do need to start naming your pain. The first step is to admit to yourself, I'm angry. Don't blame yourself for this. Anger is a sign that there has been injustice, that their limits have been violated, that you swallowed more than you could digest. Healing will not come from silence. It will come when you learn to put your voice out into the world clearly, not in attacks, but in positioning, not in shouting, but in firmness. If anything here is bringing you clarity, please like and subscribe. Someone right now is being destroyed by silence, and this video might be just what they need. You need to understand, feeling angry doesn't make you a bad person. Repressing your anger is what makes you sick. Transforming it into clarity, into boundaries, into truth. That is emotional maturity. The next time your chest tightens, ask, is this fear? Or is it anger I've never been able to show? You may find that your anxiety is actually your soul asking for space to exist without apologizing for it. There comes a time in the life of someone who suffers from anxiety when the enemy is no longer outside. It's not others. It's not work. It's not society. And you become your own executioner. The mind becomes a battlefield where you attack yourself all the time. Why am I like this? Why can't I be normal? I'm no good. I am a failure. These phrases do not come from strangers. They come from you against you. And perhaps this is the cruelest aspect of anxiety. When you start to believe that you don't deserve relief, you get used to treating yourself like an enemy, mentally punishing yourself for every mistake, every failure, every emotion you can't control. Jordan Peterson says something profound. You must negotiate with yourself as if you were someone you are responsible for. But what you do is the opposite. You treat yourself as someone unworthy of care. You demand perfection from yourself. And when he fails, the sentence is clear: guilt, shame, self-punishment. Anxiety grows in this area because in addition to the fear of the future, you carry the weight of self-judgment. You don't just suffer, you blame yourself for suffering. It's like being in a prison where you are both the prisoner and the jailer. You lock the cell, throw away the key, and still shout, "Hang in there!" But let's be clear, this is not strength. This is cruelty to yourself. You learned to be an executioner because at some point someone was an executioner with you. Someone said you were weak. That was not up to par. That didn't deserve rest. And you internalized that voice. Now, even though that person is no longer present, their voice lives inside you. You repeat the same criticisms. It is treated with the same harshness, and believe that only with a whip will you be able to change. But the truth is that the whip never transforms. It just creates more fear, more tension, more anxiety. Peterson reminds us that true discipline is not born of tyranny. It is born from responsible care. You do not raise a child with hate, but with firmness and love. And with yourself, it should be the same. Think, if you had a friend going through what you're going through, would you talk to them the way you talk to yourself? Or would you offer compassion, patience, encouragement? Why then do you deny it to yourself? Anxiety begins to shift when you switch from executioner to guardian. When you stop being an enemy and become an ally. This doesn't mean pampering yourself or victimizing yourself. It means accepting that you need care as much as any other human being. And treating yourself with dignity is not a luxury. It's a necessity. You need to stop being the poison that feeds your own pain and begin to be the antidote that supports your own healing. You don't have to whip yourself to get up. It requires firmness, yes, but firmness accompanied by respect. If you want to transform your life, start here. Seems to attack. Take responsibility for being someone who protects yourself, not someone who destroys yourself. And remember, you are not the executioner of your soul. You are her guardian. Most people spend their lives trying to escape pain. They ignore, stifle, disguise. They take medication to silence symptoms, immerse themselves in distractions, drown themselves in work, addictions, or empty relationships. But pain, when ignored, does not go away. She transforms. It grows in the dark, and sooner or later it comes back. Stronger, more confused, more cruel. You might even convince yourself that you can live running from it. But the truth is that no one escapes their own pain. She always finds a way to reach you. Jordan Peterson says, "The first act of courage is to look directly at what scares you instead of looking away." And that goes for pain too. As long as you run away from her, you remain hostage. But the moment you face it, you begin to regain your strength. Acknowledging pain is not giving up. It's assuming that it's there. It's about stopping wasting energy trying to pretend it doesn't hurt. It's saying to yourself, yes, I'm hurting, and it's okay to admit it. This recognition is liberating, because when you name pain, it stops being an invisible monster. It becomes something you can observe, understand, and gradually transform. Think about how you react when you feel physical pain. If a bone breaks, you don't say, "That's not happening." You accept it, seek help, give your body time to recover. But when the pain is emotional, you demand silence from yourself. He thinks he is weak, and he tries to hide it even from himself. This is the mistake that keeps so many trapped in endless cycles of anxiety. They don't recognize pain, and without recognition, there is no cure. Peterson reminds us, you can't heal in unfamiliar territory. You have to map the chaos. Your pain is this territory. She is not an enemy. She is a map. It points out where you need to look, where you need to change, where you need to take care. When you stop and recognize, I'm exhausted, I'm scared, I'm overwhelmed, something inside you eases. Not because the problem goes away, but because you finally stopped fighting yourself. Acknowledging pain is the first step to transforming it into strength, because strength does not come from denial. It comes from conscious acceptance. It is at this point that anxiety begins to dissolve, not because you eliminated it, but because you understood its message. And when the message is heard, the scream loses intensity. Ask yourself now, what is my pain trying to tell me? Maybe you are overstepping your boundaries. Maybe you need to rest. Maybe there are relationships that are suffocating you. Maybe you need to finally live with more truth. This is the beginning of strength, facing pain without giving up. You don't have to pretend you don't feel it. You need to learn to sustain what you feel. And it is in this act that true courage is born. Strength is not the absence of tears. It's the decision not to be ashamed of them. Strength is not ignoring fear. It's moving forward even while trembling. Acknowledge your pain. Look at her and say, I'm not afraid of you anymore, because you're not the end of my life. You're the beginning of my transformation. You don't have to transform your entire life at once. You don't have to wake up tomorrow as a new person, without anxiety, without fear, without pain. That would be impossible and cruel to demand of yourself. True transformation begins with small gestures, one step at a time, one decision a day, an act of acceptance that repeats itself until it becomes strength. Jordan Peterson reminds us, responsibility begins at your fingertips. Before you fix the world, organize your room. This means you don't have to carry the weight of the universe on your shoulders. You need to start with what is within your reach now. Maybe today it's just getting out of bed and opening the window. Take a deep breath and feel the cold air entering your lungs. Maybe it's writing on a piece of paper, I am alive, and that is enough for today. This small gesture may seem insignificant, but he is the seed of change. Because, unlike judgment, acceptance doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. When you allow yourself one act of self-care each day, you send your body and mind a powerful message. I am not my enemy. I am my ally. And little by little, this message replaces the cruel voice of self-demand. Little by little, the anxiety loses its strength because it understands that it no longer needs to shout to be heard. Ask yourself, what is the smallest act of self-care I can do today? It could be drinking water slowly, instead of swallowing it in a rush. It could be lying down and listening to music without guilt. It could be saying no to something that would only overwhelm you. It can be allowing yourself to cry without punishing yourself. These gestures are not a waste of time. They are survival. They are resistance against the inner world that has always pushed you to the limit. Peterson states, if you want to change your life, start where you can. And when you do, go a little further. That's the logic. Start small, but be consistent, because what is repeated daily becomes identity. If you practice an act of acceptance every day, in a few weeks, you will no longer be the same. Your mind will begin to recognize that there is someone inside you willing to care, not just punish. If this touched you, like and subscribe. Your healing begins with small gestures, and you can be a light for someone who needs to see in the dark. Don't wait for life to be perfect to start. Start in the middle of the chaos. Start with your heart racing, your mind tired, and uncertainty still present. Start anyway, because every small gesture is silent proof that you still believe in yourself, that you haven't completely given up, that beneath the anxiety there is still hope. You don't need grand miracles. It requires fidelity to small steps, and that is what, over time, builds a solid life. Today it might just be about opening the window. Tomorrow it might be walking a block. Then you can write a page of your story without fear of judgment, and before you know it, you'll be living a life built on a foundation of care, not because the pain is gone, but because you learned to sustain yourself in the midst of it. Start small, but start today. A gesture of welcome. A day is the seed of the freedom you so seek. Many who suffer from anxiety believe they are broken, as if there were something wrong, a factory defect, an incurable weakness, but that's not true. You are not broken. You are overwhelmed. There is a huge difference between failure and excess, and you have not failed as a human being. You just carried too much weight for too long. Jordan Peterson recalls, life is suffering, But suffering need not become despair. And what turns suffering into despair is loneliness. It is the unshared burden. It is the silence imposed on those who most need to be heard. You are not sick because you feel anxious. You're tired of being too strong. You're tired of pretending you can handle it all. You're tired of being demanded without being welcomed. Think of a full glass. One more drop, and it overflows. Anxiety is this overflow. It doesn't mean the glass is cracked. It just means it's too full. You've spent years accumulating expectations, pressures, criticism, comparisons, and it got to a point where the body said, "Enough. This is not a failure. That's a sign. A clear sign that it's time to reorganize your life, your limits, your way of existing." Peterson guides us. You must carry the weight you can carry, not the one that destroys you. And perhaps this is the missing step, discerning what is truly yours and what is borrowed cargo. Because a lot of anxiety comes from trying to hold on to what isn't yours, problems that aren't yours, expectations that are not yours, patterns that were not created by you. You've overworked yourself trying to be perfect for everyone, but the truth is that no one can be perfect, not even for themselves. Now is the time to redefine strength. Strength is not about enduring everything. Strength is recognizing what no longer fits inside you. Strength is knowing how to ask for help. Strength is knowing how to stop. You don't have to keep crushing yourself to prove yourself. You already have value simply by existing. You don't have to destroy yourself to be loved. You deserve love exactly as you are, even with flaws, with fragility, with fear. Anxiety is not proof that you have lost. She is proof that you have endured alone for too long. And now, the choice is yours. Keep trying to carry everything until your body breaks down completely, or start letting go of what doesn't belong to you. If this touched something within you, subscribe and like. This video could be exactly what someone else needs right now to not give up, and you'll have been part of this wave of support. Remember, you are not broken, you are exhausted, and rest, acceptance, and reconnection are what will restore your strength. Peterson concludes, "What makes us strong is not the absence of weight, but the right weight carried responsibly." Let this video be a reminder. The burden that suffocates you does not define who you are. You can choose another path. You can let go. You can breathe. You can finally start living without judging yourself all the time. You are not broken. You are overwhelmed. And today, here, the process of freeing yourself begins.